You looked in the mirror the other day and noticed something had changed about your hair. Maybe the texture feels different. Maybe it's growing slower than before. Or perhaps you're noticing a strength and a shine you haven't felt in a long time. Whatever you observed, I need to tell you something right now. This is not random. It's not just biology. It's not just aging. It is a sign. And in this video, I'm going to explain to you exactly what that sign means, why it's happening now, and what it reveals about the profound transformation occurring within you at this very moment. Stay until the end, because what I'm going to share here will change how you see yourself, how you understand your body, and how you interpret everything you've been living through these past months. Have you ever stopped to think how many times you've looked in the mirror and felt the reflection didn't match who you truly are? How many times you saw there a person worn out, marked by time and by the weight of responsibilities that no one else seemed to carry the way you did? That weariness wasn't weakness, it was evidence. It was proof that you've been in battle, even if no one around you knew exactly what that battle was. And your hair, which many treat as an aesthetic detail, as something superficial, has recorded every phase of that journey, every cycle of stress, every sleepless night, every time you held back tears because it wasn't the time, the place, the moment. Your hair knows, your whole body knows. And now, as something is shifting within you on a level far deeper than you can see or measure, your body is beginning to respond. What you notice in the mirror isn't a cosmetic accident. It's the first physical evidence of a spiritual relief that has already begun. Before we delve into the spiritual meaning of this transformation, I need to explain what science says about the connection between a person's inner state and the health of their hair, because here, science and spirituality don't contradict each other. They confirm one another. Human hair grows from follicles that are extremely sensitive to the body's hormonal environment. When you live under chronic stress, your autonomic nervous system goes into a constant attention. You need to prepare now. I put together an exclusive resource for those who feel set apart for something greater, but live surrounded by noise, distractions, and mental overload. This is a 30-day journey that will transform your life. A guided path to armor your mind and prepare for what's coming with daily practices of focus, boundaries, and discipline. Stop negotiating with the noise. Learn to spot distractions before they control you, and strengthen your mind. Also available in an immersive audio version. Over 10 Zuru readers have already transformed their lives through the 30-day journey. Thousands of people have already started this transformation. People like you who are tired of living in the fog. Ordinary people who decided to stop accepting mental chaos. Take advantage of this limited time offer only this month. Access your link just below in the pinned comment. State of alert. Cortisol, the stress hormone, rises. And when cortisol remains persistently high, it directly interferes with the hair growth cycle, potentially pushing follicles prematurely into a phase called telogen, which is the resting and shedding phase. There's even a clinical name for this, telogen effluvium. It's when a significant amount of hair falls out at once, weeks or even months after a period of intense stress. Many women and men over 35 experience this after loss, separations, work overload, periods where they simply gave their all and had no reserves left. But what studies also show is that when the body leaves that chronic state of alert, when the nervous system begins to regulate, when cortisol levels normalize, the follicles respond, the growth cycle restarts, vitality returns. This is proven, documented, real. Now tell me, what do you think happens when a person begins to emotionally liberate themselves, when they start to lay down burdens that weren't theirs to carry, when they begin to sleep with more peace, breathe more deeply, live with less tension and more presence? The body responds, it always does, and the hair is one of the first to show that sign. But now I need to tell you about something that goes beyond physiology, because there is a dimension to this story that medical textbooks don't fully capture. In many spiritual traditions around the world, hair is treated as a symbol of identity, strength, and spiritual covering. In the Hebrew scriptures, Samson's hair was directly linked to his strength and his anointing. In many African and Native American cultures, hair was treated as a spiritual antenna, an extension of consciousness, something sacred. It's no coincidence that when people undergo great rituals of transformation or mourning across diverse cultures, hair is often the central symbolic element of that process. There's a reason why, intuitively, so many people going through deep transformations feel a desire to change their hair, to cut it, grow it, change its color, change its style. Hair represents who you believe you are. And when identity changes, the hair wants to change with it. What's happening to you now is no different. It's just happening from the inside out instead of the outside in. Let me tell you a story. It's not a fictional story. It's a pattern that repeats with thousands of people. Imagine a woman. Let's call her Sarah. She's 42. She spent the last 8 years raising her kids practically alone, holding onto her job by her fingernails, caring for her sick mother on weekends, and still trying to be a good wife, a good daughter, a good employee, good at everything for everyone. She didn't complain, she couldn't. Someone had to be strong. But her body was recording every piece of that weight. She gained weight. Her sleep worsened. She developed anxiety she never admitted to having. And her hair, which had always been her pride, began to fall out in amounts that frightened her in the shower drain. Then came a moment of rupture. Not necessarily a dramatic moment. Sometimes it's subtle. A prayer that felt different from the others. A conversation that touched her deeply. A book. A silence. Something that told her, you don't have to carry all of this the way you were carrying it anymore. And she began, little by little, to let go. She began to say no to things she used to accept out of obligation. She began to schedule her own rest without guilt. She began to allow herself to receive care, not just give it. Months later, she was looking at her hair in the mirror and noticing it was different. Fuller, with more shine, growing again. She didn't change her shampoo, she didn't get an expensive hair treatment. What changed was her internal environment. Is this you? It may not be the exact same story, but do you recognize yourself in any part of it? I want you to understand something important. What's happening with your hair isn't about vanity. I'm not here telling you that the divine is concerned with aesthetics. I'm saying something much deeper than that. I'm saying that God, the universe, spirit, call it what you will, cares about the most intimate details of your human experience. And when spiritual transformation is real, it isn't confined to the invisible plane. It overflows into the body, into the physical, into the visible. This is grace manifesting in matter. For a time, you defined yourself by weariness, by surviving, by the strength that was always being tested. That identity was real. It was necessary to cross what you crossed. But it is not who you are. And the divine is now, layer by layer, undoing that survival identity to reconstruct something more true, more stable, more aligned with who you were created to be. The renewal of your hair is a symbol of that spiritual covering being re-established, as if what was exposed, what was left vulnerable during the battle, is being protected once again. But why now? Why is this transformation happening at this specific moment in your life? That's a question that deserves an honest answer, and the answer may be different for each person watching this. But there is a pattern I want to share with you. There's a concept in spirituality that speaks of seasons of the soul. Just as nature has spring, summer, fall, and winter, the human soul also goes through cycles. There are seasons of planting, of growing, of harvest, and of rest. And there are seasons of purging, of releasing, of being stripped of everything that wasn't essential. If the last few years of your life have been marked by loss, by difficult new beginnings, by feeling you were being emptied of something, by a sense of being at your limit without fully understanding why, it's possible you've been moving through a deep winter season of the soul. And winter is not punishment. Winter is preparation. The trees that lose their leaves in winter aren't dying. They're concentrating energy in their roots so that spring can be more abundant than any season before. What you're feeling now, this subtle but noticeable change, this lightness beginning to appear, this sense that something is reorganizing internally, this is spring arriving. And your body, including your hair, is beginning to blossom again. I want to tell you now about something most people completely ignore when trying to care for their hair's health, or their health in general. The autonomic nervous system has two main modes of operation. The first is the sympathetic mode, popularly known as fight or flight. It's the mode of alert, of urgency, of survival. In this mode, the body redirects energy to the muscles, speeds up the heart, suspends functions not essential for immediate survival. The second mode is the parasympathetic, called rest and digest. It's the mode where the body repairs tissues, consolidates memories, processes emotions, absorbs nutrients, regulates hormones, and yes, nourishes hair follicles. Most people over 35 in places like the US and UK live predominantly in sympathetic mode. Work demands it, family demands it, bills demand it, social media demands it, traffic demands it, life demands it, and the body accumulates this state of alert until it becomes the default, the normal, the only state the person knows. When you begin to transition into the parasympathetic mode consistently, through contemplative prayer, meditation, moments of real silence, quality sleep, genuine connections, nature, rest without guilt, the body begins to repair what has been neglected for years. This isn't esoteric, this is basic neuroscience, and the beauty of it is that deep spirituality, the real practice of inner peace, is one of the most powerful ways to consistently activate the parasympathetic nervous system. Prayer of surrender, contemplative practices, connection with the sacred, all of this has a measurable impact on the nervous system. Science and spirituality are not on opposite sides. They are describing the same reality with different languages. There is something that happens in the lives of people who undergo profound transformations that is rarely spoken about openly. And I need to name it here because it's possible you are going through it right now without having the words to describe it. It is the process of grieving the old version of yourself. Yes, you read that correctly. Grief, not for someone who died, for a version of you that was functioning the wrong way, but that you knew, that was familiar. That, as exhausting as it was, had a certain safety in its predictability. When you begin to let go of old patterns, when you stop answering calls that drain you, when you start sleeping at the right time instead of staying up solving everyone else's problems late into the night, when you begin to put your own health ahead of obligations that were never yours to begin with, there is a part of you that feels a strangeness, a discomfort, a sense of, but am I being selfish? Will people think I'm different? Am I right in this? This discomfort is not a sign you are wrong. It is a sign you are changing. And all real change, all genuine transformation goes through an adjustment period where the new is not yet comfortable and the old no longer fits. If you are feeling this, know it is part of the process. Do not retreat. Keep going. The discomfort of growing is infinitely preferable to the familiarity of withering away. I also want to talk about the role of relationships in this transformation, because it is impossible to separate the health of the body from the relationships you keep. There is research conducted by Harvard University that followed people for decades, trying to discover what contributed most to health and longevity. It wasn't diet, it wasn't exercise, it wasn't genetics, it was the quality of relationships. Secure relationships, where you can be who you are without needing to perform or diminish yourself. Activate the parasympathetic nervous system. They produce oxytocin. They reduce cortisol. They literally repair the body. Toxic relationships, where you need to walk on eggshells, where you leave more tired than you entered, where you are constantly managing the other person's mood or insecurity, do the opposite. They keep the body in chronic alert. They compromise sleep. They interfere with everything, including the health of your hair. As you begin to establish healthier boundaries and naturally distance yourself from dynamics that cost you more than you realized, your body literally breathes a sigh of relief. The nervous system relaxes, and what was once in a state of emergency begins to dedicate itself to restoration. You may have noticed this already happening. People who once took so much of your time and energy have naturally drifted away. Invitations you once felt obligated to accept began to seem less urgent. Silences that once caused you anguish began to feel more like a gift than an emptiness. This is not isolation, it is curation. It is your system, guided by something greater, protecting you from the interferences that were preventing your restoration. If you have come this far, you are probably wondering, but what do I do with this information? How do I collaborate with this transformation that is beginning? This is the practical part, and it matters just as much as the understanding. The first thing is simple but profound. Recognize the signal. When you notice a change in your hair, your skin, your sleep, your energy, do not ignore it. Do not minimize it. Stop and pay attention. Ask yourself, what is changing within me? What am I letting go of? What is being restored? The body speaks, and when you learn to listen to it, it becomes one of your greatest spiritual allies. The second thing is to actively protect your internal environment. This means being increasingly intentional about what you allow into your life. Draining conversations, relationships that demand more than they give, environments of constant negativity, consumption of content that feeds anxiety, all of this has a real physiological and spiritual cost. You don't need a radical overnight transformation, but you need to begin making small, conscious choices that signal to your nervous system. You are safe, you can rest, you no longer need to be on constant alert. The third thing is to cultivate rest without guilt. This is one of the greatest challenges for the generation over 35. There is a deeply ingrained cultural belief that rest is laziness, that you only deserve to stop after everything is resolved, that caring for yourself is selfishness. This belief is costing you your health. It is costing you your presence. It is costing you the vitality that should be flourishing right now. Resting is not an abandonment of responsibilities. It is what gives you the capacity to continue fulfilling them with excellence and joy, instead of exhaustion and resentment. The fourth thing is to establish boundaries with wisdom and without fear. Boundaries are not walls, they are not coldness, they are not selfishness. They are the way you honor what the divine placed within you. They are the way you protect the energy that should be directed toward your purpose, instead of being wasted on situations and relationships that do not build you up. Every time you say no with clarity and peace, without over-explaining yourself, without apologizing for existing, your nervous system registers an act of self-respect. And this has a real impact on your biology. The fifth thing, and this is perhaps the most counterintuitive of all, is to learn to receive, not just to give. Receive care. Receive a compliment without minimizing it. Receive help without feeling you owe something in return. Receive grace without trying to pay for it. Many people who spent years in the role of caregiver, pillar, strong person have developed a profound difficulty with receiving. And this difficulty, as much as it may seem like a virtue, is actually a defense mechanism that prevents complete restoration. Because restoration requires openness. It requires you to relinquish control and allow yourself to be cared for in the same way you care for others. The divine wants to restore you, but you need to be open to receiving that restoration without trying to manage it, without trying to deserve each stage, without trying to control the pace. Let it be. Simply let it be. Now I want to touch on something that may be the core of all this, and that few people have the courage to speak about directly. Many of you watching this have spent years feeling invisible to the divine in the smaller details of life. You prayed for the big things: health, provision, family, direction. And sometimes the answers came and sometimes they seemed not to. But in the small details, in the daily exhaustion, in the silent loneliness, in the feeling that no one saw how much you were carrying, there you sometimes doubted. Is he really seeing this? Does all this matter? Do I matter in the details? It matters. You matter. The care that is being expressed now through your body, through the renewal you are beginning to feel, is the answer to a prayer you may not have even formulated in words. It is the divine saying, I saw, I see, not just the big battles, the details too, your crown too. This is not a half restoration. When the divine restores, he goes deep. He goes down to the hair follicles if need be. He goes to the cellular level. He goes to the hormonal cycles. He goes to the rhythm of your sleep. He goes to the way you breathe when you are alone in a room late at night. You are not forgotten in the details. There is another element of this transformation that needs to be said, especially for those with a long history of giving more than receiving. One of the most subtle and devastating consequences of living in survival mode for too long is the loss of your original identity. Over the years, you become shaped by the expectations of others, by the crises you need to resolve, by the roles you need to play. And at some point, you look in the mirror and no longer know who is looking back. This is one of the most painful forms of loss. Not losing something external, but losing the sense of yourself. What is happening now is a process of re-identification. It is not who you used to be before the difficulties, because you cannot go back. It is who you are now, after all you have been through, integrated, transformed, deeper and more real than before. Your identity is not the fatigue you accumulated. It is not the trauma you survived. It is not the function you performed for all those years. Your identity is something that was present before all of that and is emerging again now with more clarity. And when identity recalibrates, the body follows, because the body is the house of identity. And when the house changes inhabitants, it needs to be remodeled. You are being prepared for a next stage. And I want you to understand what this means in practice. I am not necessarily talking about a big dramatic turn, although that may be part of the process. I'm talking about something more consistent than that. I'm talking about a different quality of presence you are developing, an inner stability that does not crumble when pressure arrives. A confidence that does not depend on external validation to sustain itself. You will begin to enter environments that once intimidated you with a different posture, not out of arrogance, out of being rooted, because you will no longer be trying to prove who you are. You will know who you are, and that calm certainty is perceived by everyone around you. You will speak with an authority that does not come from titles or visible achievements, but from a stabilized spirit. People will notice something different about you without being able to name exactly what it is. It is the presence of someone who is no longer in flight, who is no longer in survival mode, who has arrived at themselves. This will affect your relationships. It will affect your professional opportunities. It will affect how you are treated, because the world responds to the frequency you emanate. And when your frequency changes from chaos to grounded peace, the circumstances around you begin to reorganize to reflect that. There is one final layer of this conversation I want to leave with you. and it is about gratitude. Not the performative gratitude of a list of good things before bed, although that also has value. I am talking about a gratitude born from a deeper understanding of what you have been through. Everything you have lived, every difficult cycle, every night of crying into your pillow, every moment you wondered if it would ever pass, every time you continued, even without knowing where you drew the strength, all of it was necessary to get here. Not because suffering is good in itself, but because the process of moving through suffering without being destroyed creates a depth of character that does not exist without it. It creates a genuine compassion that is not theoretical. It creates a faith that is not naive, that was tested and endured. You made it here, with everything you carried, with everything that was taken from you, with all the times you were misunderstood, underestimated, ignored, overloaded. You made it. And you did not arrive diminished, you arrived distilled. You arrived with the essence intact and the superfluous eliminated. You arrived more yourself than ever. This is the restoration the divine operates. It does not give back what you had before. It delivers something better. It delivers the version of you that was only possible after all of this. Honor the process. Honor the marks. Honor every strand that fell and every strand that is returning. Because it all tells the same story. The story of someone who did not give up on themselves, even when the whole world seemed to conspire to make it happen. I want to close with a reflection I hope stays with you long after this video ends. What you are living through right now is not a loud miracle. It is something rarer and more precious than that. It is a sustainable transformation. The difference between a loud miracle and a sustainable transformation is that the miracle happens from the outside in and can vanish when the pressure returns. Sustainable transformation happens from the inside out and becomes part of who you are. What is being built within you now is real resilience, not the resilience of someone who endures because they have no other choice. The resilience of someone who refused to be destroyed and, in the process, discovered a depth within themselves they never knew existed. Every layer of strength returning to your body is a testament to that. Every strand regaining its vitality is a visible sign of an invisible process that is already well underway. You are being rebuilt with better materials than the original ones, and this is not arrogance, it is gratitude. It is the humble recognition that something greater than you is working on your behalf, behind the scenes of your life, in the details that only he and you know. Do not rush this process. Do not try to skip steps. Trust the rhythm. Trust the season. Spring cannot be forced, but it always arrives after winter. Always. Attention, you need to prepare now. I put together an exclusive resource for those who feel set apart for something greater, but live surrounded by noise, distractions, and mental overload. This is a 30-day journey that will transform your life. A guided path to armor your mind and prepare for what's coming with daily practices of focus, boundaries, and discipline. Stop negotiating with the noise. Learn to spot distractions before they control you, and strengthen your mind. Also available in an immersive audio version. Over 10 Zuru readers have already transformed their lives through the 30-day journey. Thousands of people have already started this transformation. People like you who are tired of living in the fog. Ordinary people who decided to stop accepting mental chaos. Take advantage of this limited time offer only this month. Access your link just below in the pinned comment.